Coming up on SolarQuotes TV, everything's big. Find out why the 6.6 kilowatt system is so last decade. We meet Michael the mechanic, who's using his huge solar system to pay his entire tax bill. And we take a look at South Australia's biggest residential solar system from 2003. And we find out how it's running now, plus the latest in solar gadgets designed for big solar systems. Hello and welcome to SolarQuotes TV, where we're going big. From what I'm seeing in the solar industry, everything is about going big now and in the future. Effectively, the 6.6 kilowatt system is dead, despite what the washed up cricketers are telling you on the TV. Now, if you've been reading the news, you've probably seen articles like this one, telling us we've got to limit our solar system output to avoid traffic jams on the grid. You've probably also heard that a sun tax is being proposed to charge us for exporting our solar to the grid. Feed-in tariffs are starting to fall. So is there too much solar in the Australian grid? No. There's still nearly not enough. Solar is only making up about 10% of gross generation in Australia. We need as much as we can get. We need to keep on building and not slow down. But how is that even possible if, as we're hearing, the grid is already full of solar? Well, here's the critical point. The grid is only full of solar at very specific times. The rest of the time, the grid is actually hungry for solar. To get 100% clean and cheap renewables in Australia, we need to do 4 things. 1, upgrade the grid to handle more solar more of the time. 2, build storage. 3, keep on building as much solar generation as we can. 4, we need to change our mindset about wasting energy. The last one of these points costs nothing, so let's dig into it. We were all brought up to believe every drop of energy was really valuable and we shouldn't waste it. And that was good because every drop of energy was used with expensive, dirty fuel. But with solar, where there's no fuel, the sunshine is free, we need to get over that mindset. We build generation, we curtail it, that's fine. Now, there's a great POMI analyst called Jenny Chase, and she came up with a great line that I steal all the time. Solar curtailment is a feature, not a bug. But what does that mean? Solar is now so cheap, it makes a lot of sense to massively overbuild, so we've got too much energy on the nice sunny days. That means, yes, on those nice sunny days, we're going to have to curtail, waste some of that energy. But that means on the days that aren't so sunny and through the less sunny seasons, we're gonna have plenty of solar power. And the more solar generation we build, the less expensive storage we have to build. For you and me, that simply means fill your roof with solar. You will lose some of the energy from those panels, but that can be minimized with smart technology. But the savings on your bills and the reduced emissions will more than make up for any so-called wasted energy. So go big, fill your roof, electrify your entire home. Small 6.6 kilowatt systems are so last year, and you can solar quote me on that. The year is 2003. That's the year I landed in Australia with nothing but a backpack. It's also the year everyone was crazy in love with Beyonce, and the year Warnie got in trouble for taking his mum's pills, bloody cricketers. 2003 was also the year that Leo Kuipers installed SA's largest residential solar system, a whopping 3.48 kilowatts. Let's go over and see how that solar system's still doing on the roof in Adelaide in 2021. Hello, we're here in Royal Park, South Australia with Vanessa.
Hello.
And Vanessa's got a really nice vintage 17-year-old solar system, and we're going to see how it's performing, because the 17-year-olds I know can always put on a bit of a performance. Let's see if this system's different. How are you, Vanessa?
Hi Finn, thanks for coming around.
No worries. So tell us about this system. I believe your dad bought it.
Yeah, my parents had spent several years saving up for it.
It would have been pretty expensive 17 years ago, I reckon.
Yeah, as my mother recalls, the whole system cost about $28,000.
Wow, so that's $28,000 for a 3.5 kilowatt system. So the reason we're here today is to see how that system's performing after those 17 years.
It's probably due for a tune-up.
And to do that, I'm going to bring in an expert, and that's going to be Pat from Adelaide Solar Repair. So Pat, Vanessa's got a 17-year-old 3.48 kilowatt solar system.
Okay.
And Vanessa, is it fair to say you're not confident that it's at its full performance?
Yeah, we've had some questions about it for a few years now.
Can you tell us a bit about the history of the system?
It was the largest residential installation in Adelaide, I think.
Wow.
It was definitely Dad's thing. It was his project pretty much from start to finish. My mum says that when we first got it, he used to come out here with a stool and sit in the shed and watch the numbers on the inverter roll back, or is it a meter?
The meter, you must have had a spinning dial meter. Remember those days, Pat?
I do indeed.
Now remember at home, kids, you can't do that anymore, it's illegal. But in the good old days, it wasn't a problem when solar was so young and they hadn't made these regulations yet.
The two inverters, obviously this is the older one without a screen. There's not very much you can tell from that apart from hopefully it's working because the green light's on. This one you can get a bit more information on. Again, the green light's on. If you can tap the screen, total it's made 30,608 kilowatt hours. But unfortunately, you won't know whether it's working until you actually get up on the roof.
So what do you find, Pat?
Okay, up on the roof, it's all really good. First thing is to obviously check all the fuses and make sure they're all good, and they were. Then check all the string voltage of the panels to make sure there's no broken connectors anywhere. Every string's connected, it's working perfectly.
Wow, so this is one of the oldest residential solar systems in Adelaide. 17, coming up to 18 years old, and no one's actually looked at in 17 years, which is a bit naughty, but, and it's working great.
It's just ticking away.
Wow, so what do you put that down to?
They use good products. So Canica panels are good, they're old, but they're good. They've got good inverters. You just buy a good product, you get a good result.
And I guess with Vanessa's parents paying 28 grand in 2003 money for the system, the installers would have had the time and the materials to do a good job.
Very much so.
So I guess this is one of the oldest systems you've looked at in Adelaide?
Yeah, it's getting up there.
So in the more modern ones, say in the last 10 years, what kind of things do you find looking at those?
Generally cheap solar inverters,
Yeah.
cheap solar panels.
What goes wrong with the cheap solar panels?
Water gets inside them. They fail through isolation, and as soon as the water gets inside a panel, the inverter has to switch off.
So cheap inverters, cheap solar panels, there's a theme here.
Yeah, and cheap installation.
Let's wish they were all installed like this one, eh?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's up on the roof, it's actually very nice. So, well done.
So there we go, we've got one of the oldest residential solar systems in Adelaide, and it's still working a treat after 17, 18 years. This thing was installed in 2003. Can you remember what you were doing in 2003? I know what I was doing. I was working in the Occidental Hotel in Sydney because no one would give me a job, but we won't get into that. So the lessons to be learned are, this is good quality panels for the time, great quality inverters, the old SMA, a good installation. The installers would have had plenty of time to do a good installation because this thing cost 28 grand in 2003 dollars. So pay a fair price, get good equipment, get it well installed, and your solar system should last for decades. Now, I can't stress enough, pay a fair price, get your solar well installed, just like Leo did, and it will pay for decades. Now, meet Mike, the Volvo mechanic. No, that's not an 80s band, that's Mike, who's got such a big solar system, he uses his solar feed-in credit to pay his entire business's tax bill. How good's that?
Hi, I'm Michael from Volvo of Adelaide, and this is my solar system. So up on the roof here I have about 71 kilowatts worth of Canadian solar panels running through 55 kilowatts of SMA inverters. Solar's been good for me because I have no power bills and have an income stream from what's been exported to the grid. Solar started here at the workshop back in 2013. So I started off only with 15 kilowatts and then ended up with about 71 kilowatts worth of panels running through 55 kilowatts of inverter. So I have 236 panels up on the roof. You've got to have a big area to be able to have that. I have a 760 square metre warehouse. Workshop has been fantastic. Obviously exporting massive amounts of electricity generates a side income effectively. So over the past 12 months with the system running, I was paid out $17,500 and having no power bill during that time as well. It's very beneficial. Well, I actually use that money to pay my tax. Everything I earn through my work, I get to keep. So total investment here is about $80,000 that I've put into it, with 12 months of being paid $17,500 and not having a power bill for a long period of time. As far as a business, if you own a property, seriously think it's a beneficial thing to have. The business I run, purely servicing Volvo cars. Volvos have had hybrid cars, more so overseas, since about 2012. More recently, around the 2016 mark, they came out with hybrids in Australia. Should be a next generation of full electric Volvos coming towards the end of the year. 2030, they've stated to change to everything to electric. It's going to change, obviously, my job as well. Been servicing cars for a number of years, so that's going to mean less work required on cars. It's going to be a different type of servicing. If you have room for more solar, put up more solar. The payback is just so much faster than what a battery is ever going to be. I'd much rather spend a bit more with a quality product than have something cheap and nasty that's going to fail.
Sticking with our big theme, we've got two questions related to what you have to do when you have to limit the solar output to the grid, because it can't handle too much solar. Got a question here from Mia in Adelaide. Hi SQ team, the ABC reported that 12,000 residential solar systems in SA were shut down on March the 14th. I was under the impression that only systems installed after October 2020 in SA could be remotely shut down. But my system was shut down for 40 minutes that day, and that was installed in 2019. How did SA Power Networks have the ability to do this? So some background, here in SA, in October 2020, the rules were changed, so you had to have remote shutdown capability on all solar systems installed after that date. But Mia's was installed in 2019 and it's still shut down. So what happened? Well, I can tell you what happened. SA Power Networks, our local DNSP, Distributed Network Service Provider, decided they needed to shut down more solar systems than they could with the special remote shutdown thing. So they went to a bunch of substations and they ramped up the voltage. Now, Australian standard AS 4777.2 says if the voltage gets too high, all inverters have to shut off. So if you were on one of those substations, which you obviously were, your inverter had to shut off when it saw the high voltage, whether you've got remote shutdown installed or not. Yep, it sucks. Look, I think this is a really horrible way to shut down people's solar systems, but the reality is, for a year or two, we're probably going to have to do this very occasionally until we sort out a better technical solution for all the legacy solar systems. Second question is from Russ, again in South Australia. Now this is a really long question, but what Russ is asking, when you need to limit the power from your solar panels, where does all the excess power go? And more importantly, will it damage anything or the electrics in his house? Well, the good news is the power just isn't generated. The way inverters work is they work on a thing called a maximum power point. Now you can see on this graph here that the inverter tries really hard to stick the dot, the maximum power point, at the top of the curve. If you want to produce less power from a solar panel, you detune it. So the MPPT, the maximum power point tracker, simply reduces the voltage or the current to a point where the panel's really inefficient. So you just don't generate that power. There's no excess power to put anywhere, it's totally safe. So that's how inverters throttle the power output of solar panels. They detune the maximum power point. Solar nerd gold. Our third question comes in from B Delight. B says, big solar is the best thing since sliced bread. But my question is, what was the best thing before sliced bread? Well, I've done a lot of research and I found the answer to your question. It's bread. And now we turn our attention to the guys that do the real work in the solar industry, the solar installers. And we've got two guys who, if anyone knows bigger is better, it's them. It's Testar Energy Solutions. Now, you may be familiar with the expression, go big or go home. Well, here's two guys who go big and they go to your home. It's Testar Energy Solutions in our installer profile.
Hi, my name is Sam Testar from Testar Energy Solutions, and this is
Aidan Riley from Testar Energy Solutions. We're based on Unley Road in Malvern, obviously doing solar, electrical, battery storage.
and air conditioning.
So we've been around about a year now. We decided that You know, we'd been in the industry and seen some things we didn't quite agree with, and it was time to do things the way we saw they needed to be delivered. Bigger is better. If you've got the money and you can do it, definitely invest it in more solar. And then, you know, when battery prices and all that sort of stuff come down a bit, then you could look at that option. So here we're looking at a Solar Edge installation. So we're looking at, on the main house, we've got a 10 kilowatt 3-phase Solar Edge inverter. Hybrid. And then we've got a single phase 5 as well. And then on the carport, which we've got a 6 kilowatt 3-phase inverter as well. So
We got a total of 24 kilowatt of solar, and then obviously the Tesla 13.5 kilowatt Powerwall.
the main reason we designed it that way is so if the grid was to go down, the battery would still be able to take charge from that single phase inverter.
To maximise our system and export only 5 kilowatt per phase, so we've got 15 kilowatt on the house on 3-phase, and then we've got 6 kilowatt on his shed. So we are 1 kilowatt over that export on the garage. But just with the customer's loads and usages, at any one given time, he was running at around 7 to 8 kilowatt with his pool pumps running and his lighting. So the export limit won't be an issue for the majority of the daylight hours. Between $2,500 to $3,000 a quarter on electricity, our customer was.
Will they get a bill? No, let's hope not.
No. Yeah,
If we're good at what we do, then no.
No, we've based our system around their bill, which is what we try and do.
So the return on investment on this one, you're looking at around about 4 years with a battery, which is, you know, excellent.
Who would play us in a movie? I mean, if Aiden wasn't available to play me.
I'd probably play Sam and he'd play me.
yeah,
we get told we look like brothers, so.
Hugh Jackman, I reckon.
Oh.
Very similar looking approach as well, I think personality-wise.
Danger Aaron, have you seen Jackass? I get told I look a bit like him.
My business partner Aiden, how would I describe him? He's a ginger, but we'll let him off with that one. Probably worst habit is asking why I bought a coffee at Macca's yesterday on the books.
I saw that. I give him shit about his haircut, his dress sense. The number plates, we got obviously Testar 1 and Testar 2. That was a rock, paper, scissors to see who got number 1.
Obviously number 1.
Sam won, unfortunately. So yeah, I got stuck with number 2.
To learn more about installers and see more than 50,000 reviews, jump on our website, solarquotes.com.au. So I think we've established bigger is better, and I've had a big win this week. They've given me 2 minutes to talk about solar tech. Let's get into it. Now, when you've got a big solar system, you need some help using all that solar energy it's generated. So I'm going to talk about a couple of gadgets that can help you do just that. Time starts now. Okay, so you've got a big solar system, you're generating loads of energy, you don't want to export too much, you definitely don't want to curtail it, so what can you do with it? Well, you've got a few options. A really good option that's much cheaper than a battery is you can stick that energy into your hot water using one of these. Green Catch solar power diverter. They're based in Australia, they make them in Australia, so that's a good thing, but we've got a table on our website where you can see lots of different hot water PV diverters. They look at your solar, and if your solar's going out into the grid, it says, hey, we can use that and we can stick it into the hot water. But what's really cool about this is if you've got exporting less than the size of your hot water element, so say your hot water element's 3.6 kilowatts and you've only got 1.8 kilowatts of spare solar, this thing can handle that. And how it does it is it uses a technology called burst fire. How cool a name is that? Now what burst fire does is it basically shoots your electricity retailer until they stop sending you a bill. No, it doesn't do that. It's even cleverer. What it does is it takes your 230 volt AC waveform and it chops out individual bits of the waveform, but it's better than that. It does it as exactly where it's crossing over the 0 volt line. That reduces harmonics. So if you chop out half the waveforms, you get half the power. So if you've only got 1.8 kilowatts of solar and a 3.6 kilowatt element, then it can handle that by sticking 3.8 kilowatts of power into your element for half the time, and you only get billed for the solar, which is nothing. Now let's talk about another way to handle your excess solar. Say you've got a pool pump, right? You only want to run that when you've got enough solar, but you might need to run it for 4 hours a day because you know that's what you need to keep your water clean. Well, you want one of these. This is a Catch solar relay, and these are pretty unique. These have got logic in them. Again, they look at your solar, they'll only switch your pool pump on when you've got enough sun, and then what they'll do is, if you haven't had enough sun that day, they've got clever logic. They can handle that, so they'll use off-peak electricity later on to say, is that 2 minutes? All right. Now, if you can last longer than 2 minutes, bloody well done. What you want to do is, you want to go to solarquotes.com.au, where we've got 2 gazillion minutes of solar information ready for you to watch and read and learn. And now for the big man of solar. He loves big shirts, big beards, and big ideas. It's Ronald Brackles.
Hey, good to see you, Finn.
So you're a big blogger that's been writing about big rooftop solar recently.
Yes, I'm here to talk about the reason why my last 3 girlfriends left me. The importance of going big. You want to put as much solar on your roof as possible.
Why do you want to put as much solar on your roof as possible?
To make money. Oh, it's also good for the environment. You're saving the planet and stuff. You know, little kittens and platypuses, and your grandchildren will get to play in fields and know what a whale is, rather than just, having pet cockroaches.
Now, one of the side effects of you blogging about solar every week for the last, 5 years?
Yeah.
Is that loads of people have done it. And
Yep.
that's causing some problems with the grid.
I'd say that more that the grid is causing problems for the rooftop solar, thank you. It's a fact. The grid, in its current state, the grid can only accept so much rooftop solar.
So one thing we're seeing is, although it's a relatively small number now, it's growing fairly quickly. More and more people who are buying solar are being told their systems will have to be export limited.
Unfortunately, yes, it's true. But I want to talk about sort of the other direction. You can install a bigger solar system than you would be able to have otherwise by export limiting.
So you can use export limiting to your advantage, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can install big rooftop solar
That's right.
despite little rules about how much solar you can export to the grid.
Yeah.
So how can you use export limiting to put a bigger system on your roof than might otherwise be allowed?
I'll show you a map of Australia. If you're in Tasmania, Ausgrid, United Energy areas, you're pretty set.
So those are the green areas. Why are you set in the green areas?
Because you can install 10 kilowatts of inverter capacity per phase and export 10 kilowatts of solar power. So if you have a single phase home, which most people do, you can have a 13 kilowatt solar system, export all the power it makes, no problems.
Okay, so green is good.
Yeah, that's 1/4 of the population.
What if you live in yellow?
You're more restricted, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, I know maths, if you're a big believer in maths, you might think that 5 is half of 10.
Hang on. Yeah, it is.
But here's the trick. You might think you'll lose half your exports and half your generation. Doesn't work that way. You lose, for a normal household, a tiny amount.
I've prepared a graph.
Oh,
Tell us what this graph's showing us, Ronald.
okay. This graph shows that for a house with no export limit, you can export all your power. So this represents a house with 10 kilowatts of solar panels and a 10 kilowatt.
100%.
Yep, 100%.
Everything you generate, you can use.
And on the other side, we have a house with 10 kilowatts of solar panels and a 5 kilowatt export limit. Now, the interesting thing is, this is an absolute worst case situation, and you only lose 14% of your generation.
So that's good news for people that want to go big.
Definitely.
Because there's a lot of people think, well, I can only have a 5 kilowatt inverter, I can only have 6.6 kilowatts of panels.
Nah, doesn't work that way.
Now here's a question for you.
Yes.
If there's so much solar, it's
Yeah.
been so popular in Australia that the grid's filling up, should we really be installing more solar panels?
Cheap energy is good. Only like people who own coal power plants and stuff say low electricity prices are bad. Oh, it may reduce feed-in tariffs as time goes by, but that will be a gradual process. So
What would
don't
you say
panic.
to someone that's bought a massive solar system
Yes.
and is exporting most of that if they're worried about feed-in tariffs reducing?
The way it works is feed-in tariffs will fall, then they close down a big coal power station because it's not making money, then they shoot up again. And the process repeats. And we got a lot of coal power stations to get through. So yeah, we will end up with low solar feed-in tariffs, but they'll never be zero.
So to summarise, the big man's advice on big solar, go big,
Go big!
fill your roof.
Fill your roof.
The more solar panels we have, the quicker we shut down coal-fired power stations.
Exactly. And for most people, the better off you'll be.
I'm installing more solar. I've got 6 kilowatts on my roof, which 2012 was a big system.
Yeah,
It's tiny now.
Well, yeah.
I'm slapping solar on every roof face. North, south, east, west,
Yep.
kennel, the shed.
I'm putting a solar panel on my arse tomorrow.
What is that?
4 gigawatts.
So far we've been talking big rooftop solar, but for the finale we're going to talk the biggest of big solar, the proposed biggest solar system on the planet. The Sun Cable solar farm proposed for the Northern Territory is a whopping 10 gigawatts. Let me give you some context. 10 gigawatts is 10 million kilowatts. If these guys use massive 500 watt solar panels, that's 20 million solar panels in the desert in the Northern Territory. They want to run an extension cord, first of all 750 kilometers to the Northern Territory coast, and then a further 4,000 to 4,500 kilometers undersea via Indonesia to Singapore. They want to power 20% of Singapore with Northern Territory sunshine. That's just insane. It's brilliant. Now, when they first started talking about this, well, probably 2 years ago, I thought they were nuts. I thought this is pie in the sky, bullshit, it'll never happen. But they've been pressing on, and they might yet prove me wrong. But Ronald, what do you think about this mega proposed project?
Well, at first I thought, no, that's nuts. And even still, given the falling cost of battery storage, maybe they'd be better off putting solar on Singapore roofs. But I don't want to say that in case they don't go ahead. I think it's, we want to be sending our solar overseas instead of coal.
So, to top off a big episode about big solar, that is what is going to be the biggest solar farm on the planet. But it won't be the last. If they build this thing, there's going to be big solar going everywhere. A report came out just this week predicting 75% of gross energy needs could be provided by solar by 2050. That's big.
Have you fed the kids yet this week?
No.
Do it.
Advert time. If you want big love from big solar installers, go to Australia's biggest solar website with the biggest bloggers and the biggest amount of information and reviews. It's big. It's solarquotes.com.au.